investment for me is not about property. It's about time.
Yeah.
And it's about the one thing I would say to people is it's about taking the time now and making the time now, even when you say you're too busy, because everyone says they're too busy, but make the time now to use the time you've got to get your time back. Because time is the real prize. Property is the vehicle, finance is the gasoline, time is the end result. And
time is what it's all about, I think.
Welcome to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, the leading weekly show for Australians who want to learn how to unlock their full self, health and wealth potential. I'm your host, Bushy Martin, and each week I go deep with the best investors, experts, leaders and founders to find out what it takes to break free from the grind, discover freedom and to live by design. Subscribe now and join me and get invested in the life that you really want. Let's get started.
Hi, freedom fighters. What does sustainable success really take beyond tactics and tricks? In a world full of property pipe pipers and so-called instant overnight gurus, how do you decide between fake news and facts? And as AI, automation and other life-changing tectonic shifts bite, how do we position ourselves now so we don't just manage to survive, but we thrive? These challenging and confronting questions are the ones that you're going to need to tackle sooner rather than later, and the ones that we're going to help you with today. Because by the end of the episode, you'll have clear answers. And in a few weeks, we'll dig even deeper in a special Future of Investing episode. But today, I welcome you warmly to a very special milestone. Today, we actually hit a big one, episode 400. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look back to where this all began, I have a bit of a chuckle. So picture this. It's early 2018 in Clarendon at Homestead HQ, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table with a wonky mic, a set of headphones, a dodgy Skype connection, a samurai snoring quietly in the corner, and a big dream to make a difference for hard-working Aussies. No studio lights, no production team, just me, a laptop, and a mad mission to start conversations that mattered. Fast forward to today, and what began as a bit of a side hustle passion project is now a national show that enjoys a regular audience of over 120,000 freedom fighters just like you. We're now video-led, partnered with DM Media and backed by Southern Cross Austereo, beaming across multiple platforms, but still with the same heart of the lonely bloke at the kitchen table and more than 200,000 listeners worldwide. That's thanks to you, as one of our loyal listeners, our curious community, and every single guest who shared their gold here on the show. We've gone from humble beginnings to reaching audiences in 133 countries around the globe, including one loyal listener in Mongolia. So if that's you, cheers, I owe you a yak milk latte. And while the world's gone mad with algorithms, clickbait and Pied Piper promises, Get Invested has always been about staying real as someone you can trust and your voice of truth. So first up, freedom fighters, a very huge heartfelt thank you to you as a loyal listener who tunes in week after week, share episodes with mates and send through your questions, your encouragement, and sometimes even your kick me up the bum back feedback. And a big thank you to our amazing guests who've shared their wisdom, their war stories and their wins, warts and all, along with our brilliant behind the scenes team. First and foremost to Sonia, my partner in all things life and business, who keeps me cool, calm and collected, well, most of the time, as she keeps the whole circus running with love and loyalty. And also a big shout out to Monty, Jess and Nico from Apiro Marketing, who become my extra eyes, ears, mouth, arm and legs, as well as great friends. And a big thank you to Cherry, who also keeps the wheels turning, along with the rest of our know-how family. And to Frenchman on the run, Eddie T, who motivates all of us in the Property Hub Facebook community, along with our production and promotion partners. You've all been the wind beneath my wings. I wouldn't be here today without you. That's allowed us to collectively create 400 deep dive Get Invested conversations every week without fail, come rain, hail or snow, along with 650 really realty talk segments, producing over 1,100 hours of recording supported by over 4,500 hours of research and preparation over the last 8 years. And I can honestly say I've learned something new from every single chat. But more importantly, I've learned that success is never solo. It's always shared, and it's always an elite team sport. So today isn't just a pat on the back. It's a moment to pause, to reflect, to celebrate, and then reset our sights to the future and moving forward. Because this episode, the special 400th, isn't about me, it's about us. It's about the lessons that we've uncovered, the laughs we've shared, the wisdom we borrowed, and the road ahead that we get to travel together to design and create a life we don't need a holiday from. So here's the promise. Over the next hour or so, we'll reshare the lessons, your fan faves, my personal mentors, and a clear, hype-free path forward. And I'll do it through the lens of my 3 F's of self, health, and wealth. As our interdependent Borromean rings of sustainable success that Get Invested has helped me to join the dots of insight on. And yes, I'll also share some initial thoughts on what's next for the podcast. How we'll steer clear of the hype and hot air, and instead we're going to double down on truth and trust. And one last thing before we dive in. I want this to be a two-way conversation. So if you haven't already, hit follow, share this with a friend, and send me an email to hello, that's HELLO, at knowhowproperty.com, or click the link in the show notes and tell me just 2 things. One thing that you want more of, and one thing that you want less of here on the show. Simple as that. Because this show only works if it truly works for you. This is your show, your community, your classroom, and today we celebrate together. So buckle up, because whether you're just starting out, mid-flight, or nearing financial freedom, you'll leave the episode smarter, smiling, and better prepared. So let's get invested and let's get into it. Let me start by framing this up for you. Across the 1,000-odd Property Hub conversations, a pattern's emerged. Most investors are chasing what I call the shiny, slotchy sigil. They're drawn to hotspot headlines, get-rich-quick promises, and the next guru flogging fortune in a fortnight like ants around a piece of meat. But here's the kicker. These shortcuts usually only short-circuit your success. So ask yourself these 3 things. Are you investing in property, or are you really investing in yourself? Are you building habits that help your health, or are you just quietly burning yourself out? And are you structuring for long-term wealth, or just reacting to rate rises, headlines, hype, and FOMO? Because here's what I've learned. Property isn't the prize, lifestyle is. Property is just the patient, plodding, predictable pathway to give you choice, time, and freedom. That's why today I'm not just going to share highlights, I'm going to share some hard truths. The truths that our most popular guests, along with the phase that you've emailed me about, as well as my own scars and stories that have all revealed what's going to happen. And I promise, by the end of this very special celebration, you'll walk away with a crystal clear compass to design your decade by design, not default. So let's get cracking and have a bit of fun. To celebrate the past gold, we've actually tallied your emails, your comments, and download data to build a top 5 fan favourites countdown. Think of this like a bit of a reverse property auction. We'll start at number 5 and work our way down to your all-time favourite. So let's kick it off with a couple who sold more books than most of us have actually had hot dinners. I'm talking, of course, about Australia's most world-famous body language and relationship duo. So your most listened to top episode number 5 is the dynamic Allan and Barbara Pease, the king and queen of communication. And back in episode 146 in December of 2020, during the heart of pandemic lockdowns, they reminded us of something critical in property and in life, that self is the real asset. People buy you before they ever buy your deal. Now, why did this one top the charts? Because it turns big, fluffy goals into bite-sized practical guardrails. Patience over panic, paper before property, partners with a plan. And at the end of the day, decide your day. then design your deals. Do that and compounding quietly becomes your business partner, working while you're walking the dog, which is the true definition of wealth by stealth. So let's hear it straight from them.
You'll be the sixth. You hang around with 5 bankrupts, you'll be the sixth. That works.
I love that. Hey, you were asking about body language. If you don't get your body language right, in terms of if you're always negative and you're not reading signals from other people, then you're going to miss opportunities, because you can set your brain, but then you start trying to negotiate things being negative. So you've got to learn how to come across so that people buy you. All negative body language has to disappear when you want to achieve something in your life.
And the bottom line, whatever you want to achieve, it's going to have to do with people.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And we know that people buy you.
Now that's absolute gold, because Allan and Barbara are spot on. In property, we obsess about price points, postcodes and percentages. But here's the truth. Before anyone trusts your pitch, signs your lease, or partners in a project, they're buying you. That means the first 4 minutes of any meeting matter more than the next 40. Your presence, your energy, your posture, your preparation. That's why I often say clean money requires a clear mind. If your head and heart are cluttered, your deals will be too. On Zoom, in a cafe, in front of a bank manager or a business partner, the lean, the posture, your open gestures, they all set the table before a single number hits the page. And here's the kicker. Just be yourself is actually very lazy advice. You need to be your best trained self. Skill beats chance every time. So your takeaway here, firstly, curate and cultivate your 5, the 5 people who lift you higher. Secondly, be your best trained self. Invest in the invisible work that builds trust and rapport, because proximity is either a performance multiplier or a deadweight drag. Surround yourself with people who expand your thinking, challenge your blind spots, and keep your wealth compass pointing absolute true north. That's what Allan and Barbara remind us. Money may move markets, but people move the money, because people don't buy property, they buy people. And with that, let's keep the countdown moving. Coming in at number 4 is an episode that made a huge splash because it hit home for almost every single Aussie. The guest, Serina Bird, better known as the joyful frugalista. She's the one who proves that joy and frugality aren't opposites, they're allies. And on episode 298 back in October 2023, her message was simple but very powerful. Health is about happy habits. Wealth starts with what you save, and those small daily wins add up to years of your mortgage. It resonated because Serina showed us that the mortgage isn't just a ball and chain. It can actually be your first investment habit, the springboard that frees up cash flow for bigger and better things later. Let's hear Serina in her own words.
In the past, I've sort of calculated roughly that having a second car, even if you don't drive it, is about $100 or so. But it's much more now. From memory, it was like closer to somewhere between $160 and $180 a week, just by having it sit there and not do anything. You're already saving several $100s a week, like just there. And then, yeah, just there. And so, I mean, if you need 2 cars, like that's fine. But if you don't, like just really think about it. Like, what's it doing in your garage? And if you're not using it, consider renting it out, because there's lots of platforms now where you can rent it out. Either rent out your car space or rent out your car.
When we looked at the motorbike exercise, for example, and compared to the car, there's about $106 a week saving in doing that, which again is nearly a bit over $5.5 grand a year. And just by doing that, you can slice a further 7 years and 4 months off the mortgage and save yourself over 200 grand's worth of interest. So now that's the kind of maths I love. Serina reminds us that tiny tweaks compound into massive milestones. Think about it. One small decision like rethinking a second car, sharing rides, or even just cutting that extra subscription, and suddenly you've shaved years off your loan. That's not penny pinching. That's power. And here's the takeaway. Treat your mortgage like your first investment habit. Automate those extra repayments from day one, because every dollar you kill on non-deductible debt is a guaranteed risk-free return. Then, once that repayment habit hums along, like a well-oiled machine, redirect the freed up cash flow into property or low-cost funds. That's when the flywheel really gets momentum. And here's the kicker. Being frugal isn't about going without. It's about choosing joy now and buying back your freedom later. So thanks, Serina. We know that frugality done right isn't about deprivation. It's about liberation. All right, let's roll a countdown forward. Number 3 is where the rubber really hits the road. And it's all about leverage as your superpower. And this one comes from a bloke who knows what it means to retire younger and richer. It's Daniel Walsh. Back on episodes 332 and 333 in April 2024, Daniel's story really resonated with you because it's simple, structured, and scalable. He showed us that leverage, when done prudently, isn't a risk, it's a superpower. Let's hear Daniel in his own words.
If you want to build wealth, if you want to maintain wealth, you acquire properties, right? But if you want to build wealth, you use leverage to acquire properties. That's building wealth. That's two different things. Totally. But what you're doing is you're recognizing that you're shorting the dollar long term and you're longing the property, the asset. Scarcity goes up in value over time because the currency lost value, and the currency is losing more value than ever before, and people are starting to see it. They couldn't see it before. The silent tax that we had, 2%, 3%, they strive for us to lose money. They strive for it. And I think that that is something that has been a big driving force for me to make people wake up. Debt is good. Debt devalues. Debt is what makes you generational wealth. Go look at all of these billionaires, right? What do? They don't create income taxes for themselves. They go leverage against their assets to go buy more assets in the form of debt because they don't have to pay taxes.
Now that's pretty much the holy grail. Daniel nails the difference between working for money and letting money work for you. Most of us slog away at a job, pay the tax man first, and hope there's something left to invest. But the smart investor uses other people's money, mainly the banks, to scale faster and smarter. And here's the kicker. Done wrong, leverage is a landmine. But done right, it's the launch pad for financial freedom. So what's the takeaway here? Use equity to buy again. Be 70 to 80% right, you don't need perfection, as long as you built in buffers and manage the risks. That's when leverage becomes a lifestyle machine. And speaking of machines, your number 2 fan favourite was all about building a $200,000 passive income pipeline, which means, of course, our collab with the one and only PK Gupta. And our conversation with him actually struck a real chord because it made financial freedom feel real, measurable and achievable, not just some pie-in-the-sky dream, as we broke down how to make $200,000 in passive income from property a year. And if you've ever wondered what the magic number is and how to calculate the gap between today and tomorrow, then this one really hit home. So let's roll the tape. That was really the start of what I now call the freedom numbers. So, when we're helping people, we help them get really crystal clear about their freedom numbers upfront and early. And for us at that stage of the game, I can share the freedom numbers because I created a vision board around this exercise right then, which I've still got, by the way.
Yeah, please do.
And we decided that we needed to do what we wanted to do. We needed about $200,000 in passive income a year, right? An ongoing income stream.
You did this when you were 33, is it?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Because I was ground zero. I literally walked out of my first marriage with my old beat up car and a bunch of cassettes. So I had zero at that stage, PK. So how am I going to get ahead? So we worked out that $200,000 is what we need because we love to travel and we do a fair bit of overseas travel. And in my very simple thing at the time, it hasn't changed much actually. It was like, okay, to get $200,000 at a 5% yield, I'm going to need income producing nest egg of about $4 million.
15 years was the timeline that we wanted to be in that position. Now, PK always brings out the best of me to share sobering and empowering info all at the same time. And notice what happened here. We took a fuzzy dream, the one day we'll be free, and we turned it into a freedom number, a timeline, and a tangible target. That's why this episode went ballistic, because it gave people a ruler to measure with, a compass to steer by, and a magnet to pull you forward. Your big takeaway? Don't invest blindly. Design your life first, then back calculate the numbers to build the bridge from today to your tomorrow. When you know your freedom numbers, every deal becomes either a yes or a not yet. And when you map it out over 10 to 15 years, suddenly patience feels like progress, not procrastination. So thank you, PK, and thank you, freedom fighters, for making this one of the most replayed convos of all time. Which brings us to the crown jewel, your number one all-time favourite episode. And trust me, this one's going to surprise you. Because it wasn't a solo, it wasn't a superstar guest, it was a community, a live Q&A with the Australian Property Investors Facebook group, hosted by Joe Tucker and Jeff Miles, back on episodes 296 and 297 in October 2023. And it soared because of the energy, the interaction, and the three simple filters that cut through the confusion. So let's go back to that moment now. A mate of mine from Alice Springs who'd come down to Adelaide dragged me along to a Robert Kiyosaki conference in Adelaide. Robert Kiyosaki was actually there, and I was like, okay, well, yeah, okay, I'll come along. I don't really have much interest, but yeah, if you're shouting me a ticket, I'll go and have a listen. And again, massive penny drop moment, because he said the moment that passive income becomes a part of your life will change forever. And it was almost like I'd taken off a set of glasses and I could see the world completely differently from that point on. So I grabbed his book, I grabbed his board game, the cash flow game. I'd just immerse myself in this stuff. And the good thing about that experience was that the way we approached everything now, from that point on, everything we did in investing, everything we did in terms of our work, career, and business was based on three key things. So everything we did had to create an income stream, it had to grow in value, and it had to be saleable. So if those three things weren't present in everything we looked at, then we walked away. Now, that's your North Star. Income, growth, and saleability. Three filters, three words, that's your compass. Because property investing isn't about hype or hotspots. It's about staying in the game long enough for time, tenants, tax, and compounding to quietly do the heavy lifting. And that's why this live Q&A resonated above all others. It proved that wisdom isn't just top-down. It's sideways. It's community. It's the collective curiosity of freedom fighters like you that creates clarity. So that's your top five. From the science of body language, to frugality with joy, to leverage as a superpower, to freedom numbers that guide your life, and finally, the three filters that keep you safe and sane. That's the gold you voted for. And it's what kept the show alive for 400 episodes and counting. And we've included links to all these episodes in the show notes, so have a listen or share them with a friend. Now, let me share a handful of my own. The guests who stretch me, shape me, and sharpen the Get Investment journey. Because they're people that I've always respected and admired, that the podcast has given me the excuse to reach out to them. And surprisingly for me, they all said yes. So what an honour and a real privilege. Because if the countdown was your mirror, these guests are my compass. So let's start with episode 165 with Raman Rakusa, where we unpacked the best and most successful investors that we learned are actually dead. Yes, the most successful investors are dead. Why? Well, unknowingly, they play the long game forever. They've gotten out of the way permanently, and as a result, they let time and capital growth work their magic. So they don't let fear cloud their judgment or sell, and they don't sell or tinker with their investments. This reinforces my belief that successful investment and wealth creation revolve around giving yourself lots of TLC, which is not just giving yourself tender loving care, but TLC in this case means combining T for time, a minimum of 15 years to go through a full growth cycle, L for leverage, the magic of OP being other people's money, which is the banks, and other people's expertise, to 5 times your capital growth. And C is for the magic of compounding and exponential growth. And it's what Albert Einstein called the eighth wonder of the world that exemplified in the example of Warren Buffett, the world's greatest living investor, when 99% of his wealth has been created in the 45 years since he turned 50. And this exponential growth underscores the impact of long-term investing and compounding returns. And his journey serves as a living testament to the virtues of patience, discipline, consistency, and the rare ability to invest in nothing for years until the right high-quality opportunity presents itself. These are qualities that most current investors ignore and will never understand or embrace because everyone's in a mad hurry. But speed kills. The next episode that really motivated me was with my conversation with John Lee Dumas, the godfather of global investing, back on episode 16. His lesson: consistency compounds, so show up every day even when no one's listening. Brick by brick, episode by episode, you build trust, traction, and transformation. Then there was my great chat on episode 32 back in October 2018 with the living legend and one of my greatest heroes, Matthew McCallowitz, the master of probability. He drilled into me that systems beat willpower. So this means that you don't just set goals, you engineer them. You stack the odds in your favour, and suddenly what looked impossible becomes inevitable. Then comes the awe-inspiring conversation I had with leading property guru Steve McKnight back in episode 249 and 250 in October 22, where he taught us that money's a magnet. When your mindset and mechanics line up with integrity, opportunities start chasing you, not the other way around. Then came my chat with footy legend Paul Roos, the Sydney Swans coach who broke their 70-year premiership drought. So back on episode 180 in the August of 2021, he reminded us that culture eats strategy for breakfast. In elite sport, as in property, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your routines. Repeatable, reliable, boring routines. That's where true greatness lives. And then there was my incredible face-to-face conversation with poet and personality Nan Whitcomb, who was in her 90s when I had the rare privilege to record her legacy back on episode 70 in July of 2019. Now, Nan's tender words, forever captured in her volumes of the thoughts of Nanushka, have helped me endure all of my life challenges over the years. And I had the rare opportunity to spend time with her and to actually help her in her hour of need. She shared the priceless reminder that words shape worlds. Language leaves legacy. How we frame things is how we feel them, and how we feel them is how we live them. Again, I'll share the links to all of these episodes in the show notes if you're interested to hear some more. And then, of course, the podcast has actually allowed me to connect with all of property's leading lights, from the likes of industry stalwarts like Shane Oliver, Pete Wargent, Simon Presley, Terry Ryder, and Eliza Owen, amongst a bunch of others, where we've learned to tune out the noise. We've learned that the media screams for clicks, but the right data whispers the truth, because macro beats media every single time. And if you are a friend or interested in listening to the back catalogue of Getting Invested in a structured order that will progressively school you on everything you need to know about investing for success, then email me again at hello@knowhowproperty.com.au, and if I get enough requests, I'll create a free step-by-step, episode-by-episode guide that will take you from zero to hero with nothing more than investing some of your time. So give me a yell now if this is going to be of interest to you. And here's my confession. This podcast has been the greatest personal development classroom of my life. Across 400 episodes, 650 realty talks, and countless hours in prep, there isn't one conversation that didn't leave me smarter, wiser, and smiling. And the common thread? That success is never solo, it's shared. Again, it's an elite team sport. Surround yourself with people that are actually better than you, and then become the leader of your team. Manage your managers and learn from them so that you can teach yourself to fish, not rely on others to fish for you. So thank you to every mentor, mate, and mystery guest who's turned up the mic into a mirror and actually helped me and you grow. Because without them and without you, we wouldn't have made it to 400. So if my mentors have been the compass, what's the GPS map? What are the big lessons that tie over 1,000 connecting conversations together? For me, it all circles back to those 3 simple rings, the 3 F's of self, health, and wealth. What I always call the I can't even say it, the Borromean rings. They're 3 interlocked circles. Take one away and the whole thing falls apart. Let's unpack these sustainable success drivers, starting with self, because it can't outperform your own identity. Every belief, every expectation, every story you tell yourself sets the ceiling on your success. And one virtual mentor who's nailed all this for me is the mind architect, Peter Crone. He challenges us to rewrite the 2 childhood scripts that unconsciously run most of all of our lives. And these are, I'm not enough and I'm not safe. For me, these are evident in the self of my lifelong perfectionism, which have acted as a bit of a 2-edged sword that's actually propelled me to make great strides in wealth, but have also come at a considerable and ongoing cost to my health. Which is why I'm about to take some time to eat some more of my own self recipe and give myself some space to balance this. Because this work is never ending and always ongoing. It's a bit of a constant lifelong work in progress that needs never-ending attention to sharpen the sword and keep sustainable success balanced. And you need to do the same if you're not doing it already. So let's talk about the engine room, the subconscious. Think of it as the operating system underneath your day, the code that quietly decides how you think, feel, and act. While most of us don't realize it, our childhood writes most of that code. For one reason or another, most of our young selves have concluded that I'm not enough. So life starts getting filtered through that lens. We gather proof. The team that we didn't make, the partner who left, the grade someone else got, and the lens just gets hardened. But the so-called proof only proves the lens exists. It doesn't actually prove the belief is true, and most of us don't realize this. So here's the trap so many so-called successful people fall into. They try to out-earn, out-achieve, or out-attract their way past that old belief. On paper, they win, but inside, they're empty. Why? Because compensating for I'm not enough keeps I'm not enough well and truly alive. It's running to stand still. We may change our circumstances, but we take ourselves with us. And I personally know this because this has been, I guess, a big part of my constant battle that I'm finally taking the time now to really address and reset. Because the upgrade is simple to understand, but very difficult to implement because long-established default neural networks are like stuck records with needles in deep ruts. So we need to constantly question the belief, not our worth. Ask yourself, is it absolutely true that I'm not enough? Then watch your mind hand your memories, which are stories, not certainties. When you see the story as a story, you break the spell. You don't solve the problem, you dissolve it. And what rises underneath is calm, clarity, and choice. And our language is the lever. The words you repeat become the world you live in. If your self-talk is coded in lack, you'll keep creating lack. So shift the code to align with your real nature, which is capable, creative, complete, and limitless. And watch your behavior and your results catch up. That's the self ring of the self-health wealth triad. Inner peace first, performance second, prosperity third. Not the other way around like most pursue. So let's redefine success, not as cash, clout, or clicks. Those are nice, but they're lagging indicators. True success is being at peace where you are while you build where you're going. From that place, the deals you do, the partnerships you form, the properties you buy, they're expressions of your wholeness, not band-aids to your wounds. That's the essence of true wealth by stealth, quiet confidence that compounds. And that freedom flows into every choice you make, because true sustainable success isn't louder, it's quieter. So inner peace first, property last. Start by looking inside to create your world outside, not the other way around. More on this in future episodes. Now, next in the Borromean rings of sustainable success is health. And that's all about happy habits, the fuel for your freedom. Because without energy, there's no attention. Without attention, there's no growth. Every high performer that I've had on the show, from athletes right through to entrepreneurs, says the same thing. Protect your sleep, move your body, breathe deeply, and feed yourself food that fuels. Automate the good habits so the bad ones don't even get a look in. And then, of course, if you get self and health right, then and only then you can get to enjoy enduring wealth, or as I like to keep calling it, wealth by stealth. The lesson: go for growth early, convert to cash flow later, maximize your asset base first and fast, but do it affordably. Then get out of the way and let the 4 silent servants do all of the heavy lifting: time, tenants, tax, and compounding. But only if you play the long game and give them 15 years or more. That's why I always say better to be roughly right than precisely wrong, because the real wealth isn't the spreadsheet, it's in your sleep at night. And here's the synthesis. Self shapes health. Health fuels wealth. And wealth, wisely managed, protects yourself and your health. It's not a ladder, it's a loop. And it's the loop that leads to sustainable success. Now, history tells us that we rarely learn from history, which is why we need rules that save us from ourselves. Guardrails that keep us in the game long enough for compounding to kick in. And fulfillment? Well, that doesn't come from the finish line. It comes from giving freely to others without ever expecting anything in return. But you can only do this if you have freedom of time. And you only have time freedom if your lifestyle income is fueled by your investments that don't require your time to generate them. And all of this only happens after you have the joy of designing and creating your ideal lifestyle that you don't need to escape from. So that's your GPS navigational map: self, health, wealth. The Borromean rings. 400 episodes distilled down into the 3 interlocking independent truths. So if you're just focusing on wealth and getting rich quick, you'll never enjoy true sustainable success until you've balanced yourself and your health habits through patience, persistence, and relentless consistency. All of which are in very short supply in our instant iPhone everything world. But believe me when I say that if you don't embrace time as your best friend rather than treating it like your worst enemy, and you don't develop small happy habits and rewarding rituals on little things, you'll never achieve them with the big things. Now, I know from bitter experience that most of you are going to ignore this. And if you're thinking that this is boring and I just want to hear the quick stuff that can get me there tomorrow, then this is your signal and wake-up call that you need to heed my warning. So ignore these fundamentals at your peril, because I can guarantee you that if you keep chasing new, quick, shiny things, you're never going to achieve your lifestyle goals. So just do the boring work and stick to it, because if your investing is exciting, you're likely not making much money. Just ask Warren Buffett, the most patient and successful investor in the world, who famously said, "Wealth is the transfer of money from the impatient to the patient." So where does this all leave us? Well, after 400 episodes, thousands of hours of conversations and countless cups of coffee, what's next? Well, let me draw a line in the sand, because the world of podcasting, and property for that matter, has changed beyond recognition. When I started, back on that kitchen table with the dodgy mic, it's really now transformed into a world that's a bit of a neon carnival, a crowded marketplace full of clickbait, Pied Piper promises and instant self-professed gurus who appear out of nowhere claiming to have cracked the code, because anyone and everyone with a microphone and a camera has just about got a podcast. But here's the thing, most of it isn't built to genuinely help you. It's built to help them, their brand, their following, their funnel, often at your expense. But Get Invested was born as a lighthouse, not a loudhailer, which means depth over drama, craft over clickbait, and signal over noise. Here's the why. Chasing trends trades trust for traffic. And the minute you book guests because the thumbnail will pop, you become a puppet of the algorithm, not a servant of you, our audience. But I want to make it clear, we're swimming against that script. So I'm out of hype cycles that pump and dump. We avoid Pied Piper hotspotting that herds investors into the same paddock, spikes prices for a season, then quietly slinks away to somewhere else. We've sidestepped promotional tours disguised as insight, or rags to riches fairy tales that sell shovels to gold fever newbies, which are actually pans of tin pitched as gold, while the spreakers cash out and you cop the hangover. So let me tell you straight, I'll never be part of that game. I'm not here to trick an algorithm or reverse engineer a viral clip. I'm here to serve you with depth, with trust, with truth. Because success isn't the size of the audience, it's the depth of the connection. It's whether you feel nourished, not just entertained. So Get Invested is going to return to its roots, which means independent, intimate mindset, community first, long form, useful, and hype-free conversations that stand the test of time. What's this actually likely to mean in practice? Well, likely fewer guests, but better ones. Not just whoever's doing the podcast circuit because their book has just dropped. I'd rather bring you the hidden gems, the voices you haven't heard a dozen times already, but who have something truly useful to say. It also means potentially more bush bites, short, sharp, pocket-sized insights you can run with today. And possibly weekly property news roundups to cut through the noise on property and finance, and again, to turn information into insight. And definitely a lot more curated vault reruns. Evergreen conversations and timeless fundamentals timed to suit the season that you're in. But here's the catch. This isn't just my show anymore. It's ours. So I want you to tell me, what should Get Invested look like for the next 400? Do you want more case studies, more mentors, more nuts and bolts property strategy, or more of the deeper dives into mindset, health, and what really sustains success? I spend hours and days working on all of this, so please do me a massive favour and send me an email, or even better, a voice note, again to hello@knowhowproperty.com.au, because at the end of the day, what started on that kitchen table isn't about me, it's about us. A community of freedom fighters who are sick of the hype, hungry for truth, and brave enough to live by design, not by default. So 400 not out, but I'm out of the hype, out of the hot air, and back into the heart of why I started. Again, that's truth, trust, time. That's where we'll continue to head to be your signal in a sea of noise. And yes, I'm taking a deliberate season to reflect and reset my own self-health and wealth. That means more of the best from 1,000-odd segments in the vault over the next 6 to 12 months, punctuated by new high-signal episodes and sessions that truly move the needle. Less churn, more earn value. Because here's the inconvenient truth. The market is being moved by those property Pied Pipers with very large megaphones. They promote a postcode, their tribe stampedes, prices pop, and they declare themselves as prophets. 6 months later, liquidity thins, costs climb, and the story quietly changes. Now, that's not stewardship. That's shepherding to slaughter, and we won't be part of it. In opposition to this, we'll be the contrarian when it counts, conservative when it's wise, and courageous when it's time to act. And we'll keep you smarter and smiling, because a calm mind compounds. If you've been here since the beginning, thank you. If you've just joined us, welcome home. Either way, this next season is for you. So tell me what you need and I'll build it with you, not at you. All right, headlights on, windscreen wide. Let's peek ahead at the tectonic shifts already shaping income, investing and property. Not the sizzle, but the steak. Which brings us to my entree for our upcoming deep dive on the future of income, investing and property. Now, if what I've just shared is our manifesto, what's the map and the GPS ahead? The short answer, the ground's moving fast. And this isn't a ripple. It's a tectonic plate shift. And the biggest plate of all is AI. Now, AI won't take every job, but it will take the repeatable tasks inside most white-collar jobs. Think accounting, conveyancing, compliance, banking, strategy decks, sales scripts, support tickets, because the admin of everything is getting automated. And that does three things. It compresses headcounts, it reprices time, and it rewards hybrids, humans who can prompt, probe, and partner with machines. In Australia, all of this is going to land hardest in big office corridors. Think professional services, media, marketing, finance broking down the old way, even parts of health admin. Now, it also supercharges data, design, and deep tech. So incomes will bifurcate, which is a fancy term for splitting of incomes into two very different tracks, where a shrinking group is doing well, with the rest falling behind. Think of it like a two-speed income world, where the rich and comfortably earning are accelerating, while the rest are stuck and slipping. So a widening income divide, all under the same skyline with very different paychecks. And what does this all mean for property? Well, as always, you need to follow the incomes and the future infrastructure. The next few years will favour the brains and trains belt. So job-dense, rail-rich rings with universities, hospitals and enterprise hubs. Not sexy, but sticky. Then add the compute curve. AI eats massive power and pipes. Think growing data centre belts, grid upgrades, new substations and fibre backbones on the fringes. Where there's compute, there's CapEx. Where there's CapEx, there's jobs. And where there's jobs, there's housing scarcity, which means increasing values. Then we need to layer in the capacity crunch, where short tradies and short materials, but long on red tape. Bill costs are heavy, approval times are sluggish, and insurance costs are skyrocketing. The translation? New supply stays lower than demand in job magnet areas. Rents remain firm, yield stabilised by structure, and value growth tracks the income line. Then there's demography. Migration settings are going to zig and zag, but the 15-minute life will keep winning. Think childcare, coffee, clinics, school and sport within a stroll. Expect secondary corridors that prove the three I's of new infrastructure, industry and growing incomes to keep compounding quietly. As for climate and codes, this means more resilience, more retrofits, and more premiums for safe, shaded, and elevated. Because if homes can't be insured, which is a growing trend, then that means they can't be financed. And if they can't be financed, it's not investment. And what about interest rates? Don't bank on the sugar hit area. We're in a new regime, so cash buffers will beat bravado every time, which means paper before property, finance first, and structure always. So plan for the worst and manage for the best, which means if you don't have 6 to 12 months of your total living expenses banked in a savings or an offset account, don't invest, because you won't last the distance of the inevitable ups and downs that we're about to experience on a scale and at a speed that we've never seen before. Okay, let's now turn our attention to some signals you need to watch without giving away the whole playbook that we'll be revealing in an upcoming future special episode. Think of this as your future-focused indicator list that you stick on your fridge, which follows the top-down scarcity model, where you first confirm your achievable purchase price power and your affordable cash flow holding cost for a 3 to 4 bedroom home if you're going for growth, or units and apartments if you're converting to cash flow. And then at this price point and net yield from the 15,000 odd suburbs and over 11 million residential properties across the country, find the best performing opportunity that satisfies this by going from state to suburb to street and finally to the property from a top-down perspective, which is actually the complete reverse of what I see most investors doing. So to create your due diligence buy box based on this, firstly, track new job ads and payrolls in health, education, tech, and public works, because where growth industries develop, employment grows, households grow, and property prices follow. Next, new infrastructure. So major grid projects and data center approvals, because in the age of AI and the tech explosion, power plus pipes will equal pay packets. Then there's household income growth versus mortgage serviceability, because property prices follow pays. And now there's the growing importance of insurability, insurance affordability, and flood and fire overlays, because risk reprices real estate. And increasingly, insurance is becoming the fourth eye of growth after infrastructure, industry, and incomes, because it's a real handbrake if you don't get that right. Once we've confirmed the primary future growth drivers, the secondary focus needs to be on close proximity and accessibility of things like universities, hospitals, health, and civic capex, which is the second-tier growth suburbs and corridors where you find them, because these are the sticky demand engines. And once an area has passed all of these gates, cross-check the demand and supply scarcity factors of building approvals versus completions for infill projects in particular, because gaps create price pressure. And lastly, check vacancy and rates within 1.2 kilometres of public transport hubs, because brains and trains will create property price premiums. Now, I also want you to notice what's missing here. No top suburbs, no hotspot hopium, because we don't move markets. We map them. And then, like a good contrarian, get there before the crowd follows, so we can then slipstream on their FOMO. Now, this is just a taste test of what I'll be sharing in our upcoming deep dive on the future of people, property, and prosperity. So stay tuned for that, because I'll be stitching together all these threads from work to wages to whys and why, and lay out a principle first playbook that you can actually use and get some results from. But I want your fingerprints on it. So I challenge you now to email me at hello@knowhowproperty.com.au with just two things. Firstly, your number one constraint, be it finance, fear, time, knowledge, or something else. And secondly, the one metric you want me to comment on in terms of its relevance, because a lot of historic data metrics don't measure what really matters. That many buyers, agents, and others bury you in deluges of data that sounds good and makes you feel good, but in reality makes very little or no difference. So hit me up and email me now, or just click the link in the show notes, and you'll help me to help you. So the bottom line, well, the future belongs to the augmented human who's patient, prepared, and principles-led. You need to own the boring moats, build buffers of savings, and buy time, so you can, again, let time, tenants, the tax office, and compounding do what they've always done, quietly, predictably, and exponentially. All right, eyes and ears up. Let's now turn this outlook into action by making the future your friend. Because when it comes to our changing times and our uncertain futures, here's the heart of it. If your day is predictable paperwork, the bots will box you out. If your day is problems, people and power tools, the bots are actually likely to boost you. So your immediate future, skill up. Add AI to your toolkit like a tradie adds a nail gun. Turn 2 hours into 1. Buy time to breathe. And savings buffers, always buffers, with cash in the offset so you can sleep easy in your bed. And over the next couple of years, we need gentle density near jobs and transport hubs, grid and firming so industry can grow, insurance reform so that one storm isn't a second mortgage, and skills at scale so Aussies ride the wave, not get dumped by it. And for us here at Property Hub and Get Invested, one direction is clear: less dopamine and more discipline. As I take some time to eat my own cooking, where we'll reshare some of the best evergreen episodes with timeless principles and insights from the vault of our over 1,000 segments to give you fewer fireworks, but will give you much more firelight, the kind that you gather around with people you trust. So here's your 3-beat challenge as we close this 400th. Firstly, design your decade. Pick your lane, growth or income, and write your rules on a Fred's-ready one-pager. Secondly, buy where buffers, trains and jobs meet. If vacancy is tight and incomes are sticky, you can afford to be patient and picky. Bit of a rhyme there, but a pretty bad one. Thirdly, make mates with the machines. Let AI do your drudge so you can do your genius. Because the crossroads aren't coming, we're standing on it. The future won't be kind to drift, but it will be very generous to design. So, freedom fighters, we've covered a lot of ground today, from kitchen table crackle to a community with real clout, from noise and neon to the quiet compounding of wealth by stealth. And before we land this plane, another very warm, heartfelt thank you to you for your ears, your emails, your energy, to every guest for the wisdom and the wounds that you were brave enough to share, and to our behind-the-scenes legends for turning ideas into episodes and episodes into impact. And here's my promise as we leave 400 and lean into the next chapter. More signal, less siren. More depth, less dazzle. More principle, less personality. Your next steps are simple too. Design your decade on a single page, do your finance first, and decide your buy box before you darken a doorway. Then take one tiny action this week and every week, because motion and momentum beat perfection every single time. And before we close, a couple of quick calls to action to keep us connected. Follow and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening so you don't miss the director's cuts or the AI and future-focused deep dive special that's coming up. And share this episode with a mate who needs less hype and more hope. And again, don't forget to email me at hello@knowhowproperty.com.au with your wish list for Get Invested's future and the one constraint that you want help solving. And if you want daily dots joined with good humour, jump into the Property Hub Facebook community and tell the Frenchman on the run, Eddie T, that Bushy sent you, because he'll look after you. Yeah, let's finish with a Bushyism that's carried me from the very start to this moment with you. Live by design, not by default. Embrace the 3 Fs of self-help wealth. Keep those rings interlocked, and time becomes your teammate. And here's to the next 400, to truth over trend, to patience over panic, to freedom over FOMO. I'm Bushy Martin. Thanks for being part of the first 400. Thanks for your trust, and thanks for your time. Because the next 400 starts now. So stay curious, stay kind, and always get invested.
Thanks for tuning in to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, your home for property investment insights and inspiration. Make sure you subscribe to Property Hub for free. Get your weekly dose of Get Invested inspiration along with every episode of Realty Talk, Australia's top online property show for red-hot property investing news and insights direct from industry leaders and influencers. And finally, I'll see you next time.